Hello and welcome to the 7 Steps to Building Resilience. I'm really excited to present this over the next couple of hours. So sit down, relax in the privacy and comfort of your own home. So some of the concepts you may or may not know, but we're going to walk through those concepts nice and slow. But for me, I'm really grateful that you've taken the time out to really just sit back and relax so we can really share this information. I'm really excited, as I mentioned earlier, to get this out, to present it in such a way that it can have some significant impact on your life, because this is all about you, isn't it? It's all about you. And as I said, some of the concepts you may or may not have heard, but we'll take our time and walk through that. But the first concept that I really want to look at today is resilience. So what is resilience? So when in your life have you been extremely resilient? When have you not been resilient? For me, when I think about resilience, my wife comes to the top of my mind. And through our first pregnancy, she had to go through mastitis, which is one of those unpleasant things that are quite often and quite very common with mothers going through their first childbirth. So she developed mastitis, but she was determined. She was really determined to get through it and to continue to breastfeed him, because she believed that that was the most important thing for her child, for our child. So once again, the question is for you, when in your life have you been really resilient? You were determined to get things done, to make things happen. And alternatively, when were the times where you were not resilient? What were those times, and how were you feeling in those times? So this is the main concept that we're going to be dealing with, or the main theme that we're going to be dealing with through the whole program. And as I said, there's 7 steps along the way to really help you guys understand, absorb this information, but then to be able to apply it to your life. Because it is easy, and you do have all the potential, you do have all the resilience in you now to really have an incredible life, a life full of happiness, full of abundance, full of love, full of joy. There's always going to be those events that are going to challenge us. And that's where we're going to go very shortly, is to look at those events. So I've created this thing which I'm going to share with you very shortly, called the performance model. It could also be easily named the resilience model. They're just words, but the significance are the concepts within this model that I'm going to share with you very shortly. So once again, please feel free just to relax, sink into your chair, and just to take this in. I'm going to ask at different intervals to actually deliberately pause the tape or the video and get you to write some stuff down on paper. So please have some pen and paper so you can just jot down some notes. So you can really, once again, understand these concepts and really begin to take them on board as your own, and really begin to apply them to those areas of life. And if you think about all the areas of life that we have, the 4 ones I'm going to really concentrate on over the next couple of hours is our emotional states, our mental state, our physical state, and our spiritual state. All have very relevant concepts they play in our life, but all extremely important and incredibly powerful. When you can really touch and get into your own emotional state, your mental state, your spiritual state, your physical state, and really take control of those various elements in your life can change just like that. It can change really quickly. So, once again, if you could just think back to those times where you were incredibly resilient, and those times where you may not have been resilient. But maybe those events, they're the events that we need to really look at and understand and get into. And my next question would be, what did you learn from those events that were a little bit painful, a little bit discomfort? Whatever those events were, that's what we're going to have a look at. And because this is your personal journey, and I'd like to think that I'm just a facilitator, giving you some great information, some great tools and techniques that you can take home now and apply to your life. So thank you once again for sharing your time with me and allowing me to take you on this journey. As I said, it's over the next couple of hours. There's 7 steps. The first step we're going to look at is the performance model, or the resilience model. It's just a word, but it's the significance of the content within the model that I want to explain to you, get across, that you can become or take more control of your life, more control of your thinking. Because have you ever had those times where your emotions and your thinking, your thoughts, maybe ran out of control, and the consequences of that? So yeah. So please sit back, enjoy, and as I said, I'll be asking you at various stages just to pause the tape, write down some information that you need to have a look at yourself, because it's all about you. It's your personal journey, your personal reflection. I can reflect upon the times when I felt I didn't have the resilience. This whole program has been developed out of working with people going through significant life-changing events, i.e. a diagnosis. And because we're all nurses too, think about those patients that you've been dealing with that were resilient and those that weren't resilient. So over my 20 years of nursing and also working with a lot of that working within the cancer or the oncology environment, I've seen some amazing people who've got some amazing resilience. But I also saw people who didn't quite have that emotional resilience. And that's what fascinated me. What didn't they have, or what do they need so they can get that emotional resilience and therefore tap into their life, tap into their personal power that I know you have. We all have this personal power. Sometimes it's a little bit scary to be able to believe that we have everything within us now to create the life that we really want and deserve. So guys, sit back and relax, take this on board, and let's get into it. All right, so let's get into it, the performance model, or maybe the resilience model. So if I was to sit you down and to ask you all about your life, you'd tell me about significant events, because that's quite often as humans, that's what we remember, all of those significant events. Things like leaving home, leaving school, getting married, getting divorced, having your first child, having children, your children going to school. We have many, many significant events, but they're all very, very subjective. So your significant events and my significant events may be similar or may be very different, but we'll always have a certain amount of emotional attachment to those events. So that's where we start with the events. Now this curve should be familiar. But we all have those events. And what we do as humans, we put a story to that event. So you think about our current Western society. Our media is made up of stories, the news, the current affairs, all of the movies that get produced, all the soap operas. They're telling a story. They're talking mainly about significant events. I'll probably say at this point that the more significant the event is to you, the more emotional attachment there is, the more energy or the more passion or the more that deep, heartfelt emotions that are really a part of those events. This is where it gets really interesting. Underneath that story, we have two things that are crucial to understand. One is called a value, or a value system. The next is called a belief, or a belief system. And if you can't read this, that's okay, because you're going to have a PowerPoint also to help you understand the flow of how this actually works and what it actually looks like. But let's just go back to go nice and slow. So our life is made up of a series of events. Would you agree? It's a series of events. And we, as humans, put a story to that event. The bigger the event, the bigger the story, and the bigger the emotional attachment that we have to that story. We have lots of little events that happen to us during the day, from getting up, driving to work, doing work, going home, looking after kids, etc., etc. They're little events, and quite often they go unnoticed, and there's usually very little emotional attachment. But the big events, the really big, significant emotional events, stay with us forever. But we have a story, and that story then gets filtered through our individual beliefs and value systems. So the next question for you is, what's a value? A value system or a value is something that it's quite simple. It's something that's really important to you. So we're in one of our coming series, we're going to really get into values and belief systems. But for the purpose of today, just to understand that values are those things that you consider to be very, very important to you, your value. A belief system is something, once again, very, very simple to understand. It's something that you believe in. Another word for a belief is a decision. So all of your decisions are based on a belief system. It's either wrong or right. Some people think Home and Away is better than Neighbours. Bold and the Beautiful is better than Days of Our Lives. Labor's better than Liberal. Private's better than public. We have all of these beliefs. And these two things, if I can really stress this or get this one little message across, these two things, once you truly understand your values and belief systems, they can change your life forever because you can take greater control of your decision making. I'll stress that again. Once you truly understand your values and your belief systems, you can take greater control of your life now. Because we operate totally, you might have heard of this concept that we operate quite unconsciously. We have a conscious mind and an unconscious mind. So the best way to describe it is, can you think about when you first started to learn to drive? I can remember it wasn't quite smooth. It wasn't coordinated. It was a bit clunky. It was a bit scary. Maybe for some of you it was very scary. But that's what happens. And when we've learned that consciously, because we're consciously trying to drive, and when we consciously try to do something, it's hard. But once we've learned it, it goes to our unconscious mind. So now, you think about next time that you're driving, you don't have to consciously think about indicating, changing gears, braking, accelerating, direction, etc., etc. It's all unconsciously. We drive very much unconsciously. Things that we do from day to day, getting out of bed, brushing our teeth, doing whatever work that we do, most of the time we do it unconsciously. We just do it, or we do it automatically. It's quite interesting, but it can be a little bit scary thinking that our unconscious mind, which is really 90% of our brain makeup, things just happen automatically and unconsciously. Really interesting. But our values and beliefs also sit within this realm. So once again, our values, they say, are on a hierarchy scale. So what we value the most, we have a lot of pain, not a lot of pain, we have a lot of pleasure around. We have order, we have discipline, whatever it is. But our highest values are those things that we retain to ourselves, that we make the effort to do. Two of my highest values are my children and doing this, helping other people create change in their life and take greater control of their life. But they're incredibly valuable to me. They drive me. I'm not going to go too much further in the values because we're going to spend a whole section on values and beliefs to help you really understand and take greater control of your life. Beliefs, once again, are those things that you consider to believe are right or wrong, true or false, and they're the basis of all decisions. All of your decisions are based on belief systems. You cannot make a decision without a belief. And once again, those beliefs sit really deep in our unconscious mind. So let's just go back here. Once again, remembering that your life, my life, are made up of a series of events. We put a story to that event, and that story is then filtered through our values and belief systems. Therefore, as Einstein said, there's no such thing as reality, because my reality, your reality is so subjective, particularly these two things, values and beliefs. No one could ever possibly understand how I feel or how you feel. It's incredibly interesting. But just bear with me. As I said, we're going to spend a whole session just on values and beliefs coming up very, very soon. Let's just go back to the model now. And as I said, as we go through this, it will become more and more familiar to you, but I won't give it away just yet. So let's say we have a big event that happens to us, a really big event, or to our patients or our families. We'll put a story to that. It'll get filtered through our values and beliefs. And quite often, these three words or feelings or emotions or reactions occur. Shock, disbelief, and denial. So once again, we see this quite often in our patients and their families. Let's look at the typical oncology patient. The event is the diagnosis. The story is, why me, why us, why now, I don't deserve it. Their values and beliefs are highly, highly affected at a deeply unconscious level. What happens, and once again you can see there's the shock, disbelief, denial. The shock is immediate. Quite often they'll go numb. They will not remember too much after that initial word or that hearing that diagnosis sound. The disbelief, I can't believe it. I just can't believe that's happened to me or to them or to us, etc., etc. And the denial is quite interesting. Usually lasts for somewhere between a couple of hours to a couple of days. Rarely does it happen longer than that. But in some extreme circumstances, you'll see that some people will live in denial for a period of time. But for the general population, these three emotional reactions are very sudden, very quick, very uncontrollable, but very emotional. So once again, they've had the event, which is the diagnosis. They have a certain story, a subjective story, because we could not possibly understand. And it's filtered through their values and beliefs. They then go through this initial phase of shock, disbelief and denial. It just happens very quickly. When it kind of settles, when the dust settles and they can take some big breaths and begin to relax and begin to soak in what has happened or what's about to happen, then this is where it gets really fascinating. We have 5 core emotions, but for the purpose of the model, we're only going to look at 2. So what do you think our 2 core emotions are? What do you think our 2 core human emotions are? We do it all the time. One is quite destructive and one kind of paralyses us. Think about it, and think about our patients in the environment, or think about those other events that have happened to you in your life. So think about, once again, a little bit of reflection time here, but think about those events. In those moments, what emotions have been bubbling up into that cause us sometimes, as I said, to get stuck or to get anger is our first core human emotion. The next one is fear. Anger and fear are our 2 core human emotions. There are 5, but as I said, for the purpose of the model and really understanding a little bit more about you, fear and anger are our 2 biggest emotions. Once again, thinking about the event, thinking about the oncology patient, the event, the diagnosis, the story is being filtered through their values and belief systems. They've had shock, disbelief, denial. They then settle into this really interesting period of they'll be angry, but they'll be fearful. They'll be angry, but they'll also be fearful. If I were to ask you now, if anger had a direction, and by direction I'm meaning past, present or future, where do you think anger would come from? Where do you think anger comes from? Past, present or future? Past, present, future. The arrow is kind of a bit of a hint, but anger is always associated with the past. Always associated with the past. So think about the times when you've been angry. The event happens, you get angry, you say words, you do actions, you do behaviour. As soon as the events happen, it's gone. But what do we do as humans, particularly in our Western society? We get a little backpack and we hang on to it for dear life. So the next time that event happens, we get angry again. And quite often you'll see through life, you'll have a series of triggers or things that really press your button. It might be a person, it might be a personality, it might be an event, it might be a system. If you look at the current health system, there could be a lot of triggers that are happening out there for you. The uncertainty, the fear, the lack of leadership, the lack of direction. It might be making you very angry, but it's always associated with the past. When the event happens, it's gone. But as humans, we tend to hang on to it. Really interesting. The next one, as I said, is fear. So the question is, again, fear. Where does fear come from? If it has a direction, is it past, present or future? Is it past, present or future? Think about it. When you're scared, are you scared of right now? Are you scared or fearful about what has happened? No, you're always scared. It's future focused. Fear is always associated with the future. Once again, if you can't read my writing, we're going to have a PowerPoint which is going to be flashing up, giving you all of these words, all of these significant words, and it'll also help you understand the flow of how this actually occurs. But anger is always associated with the past. Fear is always associated with the future. The story I often tell is that I really don't like dentists. Knowing that I have to go to the dentist to pick up that phone, make the appointment, I sometimes can cause a physiological response in my belly, a little bit of butterflies or anxiety, knowing I'm going to have to get a needle, but the event's not even real. but I've been able to produce a physiological response within me that causes me a little bit of fear or anxiety or apprehension, whatever the word you want to put to it. But that's how our brain works. It projects into the future, but we can produce a physiological response now. So once again, think about an example in your life where you've been fearful of something. As we're approaching the schooling year, some of our children might be a little bit scared or nervous or fearful about going to school. The event hasn't even happened, but they've projected into the future and they've caused a physiological response. It's really interesting. So once again, think about times where you've been angry. And I'd probably ask you now, how was your behaviour? Were you in control of your behaviour when you were in that angry state? When I'm talking about a state, I'm also talking about emotions. Sometimes I alternate between the two. But state and emotions are very, very much the same. So your emotional state, when you were in your angry state, how was your behaviour? Were you able to control your behaviour? Road rage is a great example of people who are lost control, complete control. Their emotions have overwhelmed them and they're at the extreme of anger. But anger is still very much associated with road rage. Fear, once again, think of a time when you've been fearful. Has the event even happened? How far out is the event? And when you actually get to the event, is it actually as bad as you thought or imagined? Einstein also says our imagination is more powerful than our willpower and more powerful than knowledge, our imagination. It can do some tricky things, some great things as well. So you're with me? You're still with me here? So we're just going through this now. So this is still the performance model. We're just looking at some of the events that have happened. Once again, if we've been looking at the oncology, the typical oncology patient, but also just begin to think about your own life, the significant events that have happened to you, the story that you've put to it, the values and beliefs that have been affected. As I said, the bigger the event, the bigger the emotional reaction, we're at greater risk of then getting angry and fearful. Our oncology patients are fearful of the future. Are they going to die? Am I going to die? They'll ask the question. But they're also angry, particularly if they've got a lot of unresolved issues from the past. Interesting. But the longer we sit gripped by those two core emotions of fear and anger, we're at greater risk of developing this very, very popular term, depression, which is obviously just sitting here in the gully of the curve. So depression is a really interesting concept, term, diagnosis. Our Western world is becoming more and more aware of this word, this concept, and it can be very, very debilitating. I'd probably like to stress here that, one, it's normal. It's a normal reaction for us to become depressed. Another word would like to substitute for that sometimes is just sad. It's okay to be sad over some of those events. It's okay. It's really okay, and it's very, very normal. Our biorhythms have these cycles. Our cells have cycles. Everything has a cycle. But going here, it's perfectly normal, but it's $1 trillion industry, depression, in the USA. If I were to ask, how do we currently treat depression? You might say drugs, therapy, etc., etc. My response is really badly. We treat depression really badly. The medical model of how we treat depression is we give it a tablet. We give it a tablet. And that's all we do. If you truly want to treat depression, and if you truly want to make a difference to someone's life, you need to go straight back up here, get really interested in that person or that family and the problem, and look at their values and beliefs. What do they believe about themselves? And what values have been affected as a result of that? All the tablet does is helps with the chemical imbalance. It doesn't address the problem or the issue. The problems or the issues are all up here. It's all up here in our imagination. Once again, Einstein said, all of our problems are of our imagination, and all of the solutions to our problems are in our imagination. And he's absolutely right. We can have, once we begin to master that little internal voice, that internal dialogue, the self-talk, and take greater control of that and make it speak to us, to you, more nicely, then we can begin to make a significant difference on this thing called depression. But it's a $1 trillion industry in the US. They're predicting within the next 5 to 10 years, it'll be the number 4 killer in the United States. It's massive. It's out of control. And we're treating it really poorly, not well at all. And sometimes, as I said, sometimes we in our own life, as a result of these events, sometimes can get a little bit sad, but it's absolutely normal. It's absolutely normal. I'd like to stress that. It's very normal to feel sad, to feel depressed. However, when that depression begins to interfere with your life, your work, your relationships, your finances, your physical being, your spiritual being, your emotional being, etc., then it becomes a real issue and it needs to be addressed. This has its place, but in a small element. As I said, if you really, truly want to master and get over depression and help others get over depression, you need to go straight back up to the top and really get interested in that person and look at their value systems and look at their belief systems. And I believe it's that simple. It's more complex when you obviously get in with that person. However, that's how it needs to be done, needs to be treated. As we're going through this cycle, obviously we're going to go up the curve now. So what do you think would be the first step up? Moving away from depression or out of depression. The very first thing we need to do is become aware. Now you're probably thinking, aware of what? Aware of you. Aware of self. Aware of your true values. And what do you actually believe in? What do you believe in? So awareness is really the first step to help you get out of depression or to get out of a negative state, is to get really interested and curious about you. Because once again, the 7 steps is all about you. And Personal Edge, and what I'm committed to, is really helping you take greater control of you. So you need to become more aware. What are your drivers? Values are often called drivers. What drives you to get out of bed every morning? And what do you believe about yourself? They say there's about 5 universal belief systems that we all think globally. And they're disempowering, as you probably could imagine. But they go like this: I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. I don't belong. I'm not lovable. So once again, we all have them at some level. But the higher you have them in a level, in yourself, the greater risk you are of this, of feeling angry, of being fearful of the future, paralysed. Some people are paralysed by fear. They won't make any decisions or take any actions because they're too scared of the consequences. And they're so hung up on the past. Quite often, sometimes we blame our parents, our upbringing. We have all these stories about why life's so hard, but they're just a story. You can change your story by taking control of your life, but becoming more aware of you, the person, you, and your greatness. Because I truly believe, and this is what professional development is all about, I truly believe you have everything within you to become truly resilient. You do. You just have to believe it. You just have to believe it. So awareness. So what's the next step? So once we become a little bit more aware of our values and belief systems, then we can learn some knowledge. Don't worry about my spelling. And skills. And this is what the 7 steps is all about. It's about giving you knowledge and skills that you can take away and begin to apply to your life now, immediately. Because it's all about you. But we need knowledge and skills. And sometimes we need to get an expert. And I like to think I'm one of those experts that can really help you on your journey. But knowledge and skills. Knowledge and skills of what? Of this. Of understanding self. Understanding you. Understanding what makes you tick. Really, what makes you tick? What drives you to get up? Where does your energy come from? And we're coming to energy in a minute. But as humans, this is what we do. Once we've got our knowledge and skills, we'll then test it and demonstrate. So even though you're sitting at home now in the privacy and comfort of your own home, you're still processing your little internal voice. Part of it will be saying, oh, he's wrong. Another part might be saying he's right. But you'll be testing and demonstrating all of this knowledge that you're about to receive. Testing and demonstrate. And you'll take what you think works and that what you truly believe and what you feel is right, and you'll take that and you'll begin to apply it. Other stuff, you'll just leave it to the side. And that's right. That's cool too. There's no problems with that. But what I'd say, if you can just put it in a box inside your room, so hopefully a little bit further down the track, when you're ready to look into that box and look for more tools and resources that are already within you, they're there, ready to go. But it's about becoming aware of self, getting that knowledge and skills, and then testing and demonstrate. By doing that, you'll then get some insight to you, what makes you tick. But this is the interesting thing. The more you understand about you, the more you'll begin to understand about others and what makes them tick. And do you think that would be useful to your patients, to your family, to your significant others? How incredible would it be to wake up and feeling that, once you've got all this control, this personal power deep within inside you, that just waiting for you to access. But by doing that, you become more aware of others and what makes them tick. Do you think communication and conflict would improve? Once you understand you, then you'd be able to understand others. It's fascinating. But you'll get insight. And then you'll get a little bit wise, some wisdom. Don't we all want to be a little bit wise? Don't we? This is not a smooth curve. It just doesn't flow like this. People will get stuck here. They'll get stuck here. They might even get stuck in denial. This is quite often a stuck state. No momentum. They can't move forward. They can't see a future. So this is a very disempowered state. But as I said, these are the steps to help you move out of that state and become more empowered. So looking at becoming more aware of you, of your values and belief systems, getting some skills and knowledge, and this is what the 7 steps is all about again, giving you all the skills and knowledge that you need to take greater control, controlling that internal dialogue. You'll be testing and demonstrating as we go through this. You'll be filtering some stuff and taking some stuff in. And I'll just mention filters, because sometimes I'll use that. These are, as I said, we're going to get into values and beliefs a little bit down the track, but values and beliefs are filters. And what do filters do? Think of the blood filter that we often use in the hospital system. It lets some stuff through, but it stops other stuff. Once again, your unconscious mind is also filtering all of this information. That's why it's important to keep it into a box somewhere close to you so you can look at it sometime in the future. Not now, but when you're ready. As I said, they might get up to this state of being wise and having insight, but then another event might happen. Another event might happen, which might send you right back to here, or here, or here, or here. So this is just, as I said, this is just some of the stepping points through what we're going to be looking at with the performance model. The performance model is just to give you a big overview about where we're going. Where we're really going is to look at that, because this is where true self-power comes in. Understanding your values and understanding your beliefs. Up here, this is what I call peak motivation. And it's very much about moving forward. It's very much about moving forward. You think about when you're highly motivated or if you're inspired, how much energy do you actually have when you're in that state? A lot. But when you're here, quite often your energy and your state will keep you from moving forward. So once again, this is just a cycle. Our whole biorhythm is a cycle. But when you're here, when you've hit your peak performance, you've got then the ability to actually move forward. But then what's going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? I quite often ask the people in the live training, have you ever started an exercise program? Have you ever started a diet program? Have you ever started a relationship or started a new hobby or a new sport? What happens? We're usually here, we're on a high, aren't we? You feel great. Your energy is good. You're feeling positive about yourself. Hopefully it's within your value system, otherwise you probably wouldn't be doing it. But you believe that this is going to be good, this is going to work, this is going to last, this is it. This time I'm going to lose the weight, this time I'm going to get fit, this is the relationship. You're telling yourself all of these stories. But usually somewhere between 3 weeks and 3 months, sometimes longer, sometimes a little bit shorter, we'll start from this highly energetic, powerful state, and we'll hit rock bottom. So has anyone who started that diet regime or started that exercise program, how long did it last? That relationship, how long did it last? And did you go from a state of feeling really highly empowered, motivated, inspired, energetic, moving forward, to a place of no energy, no wisdom, no insight, beating up on yourself? How many of you actually beat up on yourself? And you actually buy into those beliefs that you're not good enough, you're not worthy, you don't belong, you're not lovable. As I said, the bigger those elements or those beliefs are within you, the greater likelihood that you are going to be in one of those stuck states. But we're here to move out of those stuck states. But I just want to emphasise, this is very normal through life. And when you do hit peak motivation, as I said, the question of what's going to happen next? There's going to be another event. There cannot not be an event. You would have heard the concept about change. The only thing that is really certain in life is change. Change is inevitable. You cannot not change. And the great thing is that you cannot not be changed by listening to this type of information. This is all about giving you some power, some tools, some techniques, but creating that awareness that you are perfect the way you are. I tell my children every night, you're perfect the way you are and you're perfect the way you're not. Because I truly believe that. You are absolutely perfect the way you are. You're perfect the way you're not. So many of us are looking for that magic pill, that magic bullet to make us different, make us better. If we have those shoes, I'll be better. When I lose this weight, I'll be happier. When I find that perfect man or woman, I'll be happier. Happiness is a skill that you've got to teach yourself. Happiness comes from in. It doesn't come from without. Hear those people who win the lotto. You think they'd be happy? It's been measured that people who win significant amounts of money, if they don't lose it within 12 months, their level of happiness goes straight back down to wherever it is. So we've got some tools and techniques that can measure the levels of happiness and satisfaction. But we know that happiness comes from within. And if you're relying on external sources to make you happy, you're looking in the wrong place. You're looking in the wrong place. You need to look within you. You need to understand you, so you can take greater control. You can be happy right now. My wife sometimes thinks that when she's losing weight, she'll be happier. She might be. But there's no reason why she can't be happy right now. Same with you. There's absolutely no reason why you can't be happy right now. Once you can let go of all that crap in the past that we all hang on to, we've all got it, and it's for some people it's such a weight. It can be such a weight. Or if you're like some people who are paralysed by fear and don't want to make any decisions. So for you, just think about where is it that you are right now. But understand, if you truly want to be happier, let go of all this external stuff. It's about taking control, becoming more aware of you, because it's all about you. So I've just got some questions. We're getting close to wrapping up the first of the 7 steps now. But this is, as I said, this is the performance model. You're going to see the PowerPoint very, very shortly. Once again, it'll help you map it. But the questions, I've got some questions for you. Because life is all about learning. Would you not agree? It's all about learning. If we don't learn, we're doomed to make the same mistakes over and over and over again. It's quite sometimes called patterns of behaviour, and we all have patterns of behaviour. So the question is for you. Love. One of the strongest emotions or feelings, whatever you want to call it. But my question for you, how much do you love yourself unconditionally? If you're a parent, I'm going to make the assumption that you love your children unconditionally. They're a high value. They're a high value, high importance. And most parents, 99% of parents, love their children unconditionally. But the question is for you, how much do you love you unconditionally? How much do you love yourself unconditionally? And I'm going to make another assumption that 99% of you don't love yourself unconditionally. So the question you need to ask yourself is why? Why don't you love yourself unconditionally? What do you believe about yourself that prevents you from not loving yourself unconditionally? And then once again, this is all for your private reflection, because some of this stuff can be a little bit painful, a little bit confronting. But isn't that why we're here? Aren't we here to learn, to become better, to become happier? This is where we start. So how much do you love yourself 100% unconditionally? And if not, why not? Energy. I told you, this is a great word. My question for you, where do you get your energy from? Where do you get your energy from? The best example I can give of this, if you have a hobby, what's your hobby? What's your hobby? What do you do that you absolutely love to do? And if you want to, just write it down. What do you do? What gives you your energy? And when I'm going to, once again, make an assumption or do a mind read that when you're doing your hobby, the two questions I always ask is, what happens to time? Does time drag? Does time disappear? And once again, my certainty, which will outweigh your doubt, is time disappears. When you're so consumed in something that you truly, truly love, time disappears. It just vanishes. And what happens to your energy? Is it high or is it low? Is your energy high or is it low? Once again, I'm going to do another mind read. I'm going to suggest that it's incredibly high. That you're so consumed in whatever it is that you're doing, time disappears, but you've got all this energy. Children are a great example of when they're at play. When children are at play, and this is why children are such great learners, because they're so involved in what they're doing right now. Nothing else matters. Nothing else matters. But their time disappears and their energy is incredibly high. When you're doing your hobby, when you're doing something that you love, for me, it's playing sport, watching cricket, socialising with friends. When time disappears and I'm feeling incredibly energised, I know that I'm in a really good space. And now we've got research to suggest that it's incredibly healing. So my message for you right now regarding energy, do what you love, do it more often, be selfish. Selfish always has a negative connotation. Not at all, not in this program. You need to be more selfish. Nurses need to be more selfish. The profession needs to be more selfish. It's all about self-care. This is truly self-care. If you're involved in something that gives you enormous energy, sometimes we call it the flow, where time disappears and your energy is incredibly high, research can also now measure that it's incredibly healing. It can help our immune system. I could tell a story about some people who are in disempowered states where their energy is low, they beat up on themselves a lot, their immune system, they're always sick. Maybe you know people like that. I'll talk about another quick concept just briefly about pessimists and optimists. Pessimists are those people who, everything's going to be wrong, it's going to doom and gloom. We all have those people in our lives, some more than others. I've got a few in my life, but they're always sick. They're fighting a cold, or they've got a cold, or they've got an injury, something like that. Once again, really, really interesting, but their energy's always low. But those people, the optimists, I've also got a lot of optimistic people in my life, always see possibilities, opportunities, never the negative, always the positive stuff. Those people usually have high energy. We've also got those two types of people who are extroverts and introverts. And once again, it's interesting in couples. So my wife's an introvert. Her energy, she gets all of her energy by being alone. So now we've got 4 children. How much time do you think she gets to herself? How much time do you think she gets? Very limited time. So all of her energy, she's giving. And what do we do as nurses? giving, giving, giving. We're giving to our patients, their families, our colleagues. We're constantly giving. So we need to go back and look at self-care. We really need to focus more on self-care, so to prevent burnout, to prevent stress. So it's very much about being selfish and doing something that's really important to you, not to anyone else, but what is important to you. I'm an extrovert, so my wife and I are a good match at that level because I get my energy by being with people. People give me energy. So once again, being with the kids, I get quite energized. But also when I'm socializing, my energy is really high too because I love interacting with people. I did a drug role for a few years and it was a very isolating role and my energy was just going. So that was an indicator to me because I was such a quick learner. It only took about 15 months to really realise it wasn't the industry for me because it was very isolating, very just me alone. I had no other support team around me. I had no office, had to work from home. But it was an indicator that my energy was just going. There were other factors involved, but knowing that I wasn't with people on a day-to-day basis, my energy was going. So I had to make a decision and I decided to leave that profession. Really interesting, but my energy level was a great indicator. So once again, is your current energy, is it high or is it low? If it's high, that's great. What are you doing? Write it down on a piece of paper. What gives you energy? And also, what takes your energy away? Begin to understand more about you. I'll keep moving on because time's always an issue. The A stands for awareness. So once again, becoming more aware. It's about loving yourself unconditionally, doing stuff that's significantly meaningful to you, where time disappears, you have all the energy in the world. By doing this, you're going to become more and more aware of yourself and also aware of others. This will also lead into resilience. Because if you're doing what you love and it's giving you great energy and you're becoming more aware of yourself, you're naturally going to develop your resilience. And resilience is just about having that innate energy and that innate thinking that, yeah, I can get through this. I can get through any event that's thrown at me. Sure, I'm going to put a story to it, but I've got everything within me now to be able to get through that event. Anything at all. So once again, this has a really nice flow to it, but it's all about getting the learnings through life. How much do you love yourself? What gives you your energy? Becoming more aware of self, and by doing that, aware of others, automatically come to resilience. Excuse my writing again, but we have to remember, I'm not a great writer, that's okay, but you're going to get this on the PowerPoint. No excuses. Sometimes this gets a little, not a lot, but a few people are a little bit upset because one of the principles that we teach through the 7 steps is having no excuses. Some people will have all of these reasons, stories and excuses. They'll be angry. Classically, they're more angry people. But why life isn't working for them, why they're not happy, why they're not their ideal way, why they're not in the ideal relationship, etc., etc. But we want to teach you that drop all the excuses. This is about taking greater responsibility and accountability for you, no one else. This is all about you. If you do want to love yourself, if you do want to have more energy, if you do want to become more resilient, you have to leave all of those excuses behind. You know, I've had a few instances where I've had significant interviews or a significant opportunity and I got sick, I got run down for whatever reason prior to that event. But my belief in myself, and I wasn't going to have that as an excuse as to why I couldn't achieve what I wanted to achieve. Athletes are a great example of people having no excuses. A current affair is a great example of people having all the excuses. There's a term out there called victim behaviour. And victims have all of the excuses. And quite often they're angry people and fearful people. But they're interesting people too because they take no responsibility or accountability for themselves. Once again, the 7 steps is all about you learning all of this tools and knowledge and skills and techniques that I can give to you in this short amount of time, but having no excuses. Quite often we use time and I'm too busy. I can't exercise today, I'm too tired. I can't have that relationship, I'm not lovable. We have all of these excuses. Some people are more than others. So just be very, very careful that you don't use excuses to stop yourself from being happy. And once again, those universal belief systems, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I don't belong, I'm not lovable, are excuses, and quite often will stop you from achieving. And once again, I want you to achieve your absolute best. I really do. I really want you to achieve your absolute best. But I don't want you to have any excuses. There are no excuses. I is about intuition. You're not going to be able to read that, but that's okay. The PowerPoint's coming. Intuition is that little gut feeling. And as nurses, we need to be more intuitive. I think nurses are generally intuitive anyway, because we need to be able to not always rely on technology to understand our patients, but trust our gut feeling. Sometimes I work with business people now, and I'm asking them, instead of logically making a decision, base it on a gut feeling. What does your gut feeling say? Because your emotions are there for a reason. Do not be fooled by that. Your emotions are there for a reason. There's a message in anger. Anger just means you need to pay attention to something. There's also a message in fear. All of our emotions have a message. We just need to understand that. And that's what we're going to get into as we go down this path. But it's about trusting your intuition more, trusting your gut feeling. If something doesn't feel right, there's a message there. Listen to it. If it does feel right, act upon it. But it's about becoming more intuitive. N in the learning stands for Namaste. So I've recently started yoga, and Namaste is a really nice greeting or a thank you that comes from the yoga tradition decades or centuries ago. It's just saying thank you. I'm grateful for what I have now. And once again, sometimes in our busy Western world, we have all this stuff around us. Obviously, with 4 children, I have a lot of stuff around me. But are they grateful for it? I'm grateful for my children. I'm incredibly grateful. But I really believe they don't need all of those toys, all of that external environment, once again, to be happy. But are you truly grateful and happy for what you do have? And in Australia, in Queensland, in Brisbane, wherever you are listening, in the Western world, we should be incredibly grateful. We make up 10% of the population that actually have money, that have shelter, that have food. Over 90% of the world actually live in poverty, poor shelter, poor water supply, contaminated water. So once again, be grateful for what you have. It can be taken in a moment. Once again, quite often our cancer patients understand what it actually means to be grateful because they've been confronted with life and death. They realise all of the external stuff doesn't matter. What really matters is the relationship with others and the relationship with self. Once again, this is all about the relationship with self. So start becoming more grateful for what you do have. Quite often we focus on what we don't have, and that's where worry comes in. So the next time you're worrying about something, just stop, get really curious and go, well, why am I worrying? You're worrying because you're focusing on what you don't have or on the lack. Trust me, if you focus on what you do have and become more grateful for what you do have, you will automatically induce that state of happiness. So just be careful. So once again, sometimes my wife's a little bit of a worrier. All it means is that she's focusing on the lack, what she doesn't have, or what could happen. And that's not a powerful state to be in. So I'd rather you shift your focus, and focus we'll get onto another topic very soon, but your focus determines your quality of life. So you can either focus on what you've got, or you can focus on what you don't have. 2 very different states to be in. But just become more grateful. It's Namaste. G is for goal setting. One of my goals is to get all this information out to all the nurses globally so they can start taking greater control of their life, of your life. But what goals do you have? Personal goals, business goals, relationship goals, health goals, whatever they are, we need to have goals. Otherwise, what are we here for? Seriously, what are you here for? What are you here for? If you don't have goals, what are you here for? So I'd also challenge you and suggest to you, if you don't already, get goals happening. A really good friend of mine part of her goal setting, she has a vision board. So she puts up all pictures of what she wants to achieve, what she wants to manifest, what she wants to attract. But it's still goal setting. So my challenge for you is what goals is it that you want to achieve? What are your goals? So this is the learnings. This is all about the learnings. But these are questions I really want you to ask yourself. How much do you love yourself? Where does your energy come from? Become more aware of you, of self, and you'll automatically become more aware of others. By doing that, you cannot not become more resilient by doing that. Letting go of all of your reasons and excuses. Just let them go. Focus on what you want, not on what you don't want. Trusting your gut feeling, becoming more grateful, and begin to set some powerful goals. If you've never done goal setting before, it's easy. We can do that at a later time. But write down on a piece of paper what you want to have, what you want to achieve. Get pictures of what does it look like. If you want to have a holiday, if you want to go camping, if you want that new car, whatever it is, I'm not here to challenge the materialistic stuff. I'm here just to challenge you to start setting some goals about you, personal goals. What is it that you want to achieve in life? What do you want to leave behind? A great little exercise, which we might do a little bit later, is, once again, using your imagination. If you're on your deathbed, what advice would you give your current self now? So once again, it's a little bit of a mind stretch for some, but just project yourself into the future. You're on your deathbed, you're dying. What advice would you give the current you right now? What advice would the future you on your deathbed give to the present you? That'd be very interesting to know. So guys, I've given you a lot of concepts. To me, this is the performance model. Where did it come from? Why is it important? It evolved out of my time working with the Leukemia Foundation, so working with the patients. I spent 8 years working with the patients. When I first started, I wanted to rescue them. And sometimes nurses want to do that because that's part of our caring nature. We want to make them feel better, keep them safe and sound. But the reality is we can't. And once again, because I'm such a quick learner, it only took me about 4 years to really discover they don't really want that. They want to be empowered. They want to understand themselves and understand their emotions. They understand the event and they know their story, but they quite often are very confused by this. Quite often the diagnosis, that shock, is enough for them to really look at their values, what is important. And quite often it's not work, it's not the money, it's not the travel, it's the relationships. It's the relationship with yourself and it's the relationship with the loved ones around you. So once again, this is just the starting point for about where we're going to go. And I'm hoping that you can get a sense now or a feeling of we're going to go down some pretty powerful stuff or learn some powerful stuff that can hopefully be life-changing. Because this is what I want it to be. I want to give you all the tools, techniques, knowledge that I've acquired since I've invested in me. And now you're investing in you. And I want to share everything that I have with you to help you, once again, have and live the life that you truly deserve. And once again, it can be confronting. I'm making no bones about that. It's going to be confronting. It's going to be challenging. But I also promise you, if you can begin to take some of these concepts, learn more about those concepts, learn more about you, your life will change. It'll never be the same. So we're going to have a little rest there now, guys, because as I said, we've taken a lot of information in. We've given you a lot of information to process. Right now, I'm sure your brain is going at 1,000,000 miles an hour in your imagination. Once again, you'll be filtering some stuff. You'll be putting in a box. But hopefully you'll be taking some other stuff on. But hopefully you can see this in your patients. We see this in our patients daily. The events that happen. The story they tell us. We don't truly understand this, but we can see their initial responses. And we see this ever more present in our current profession. Our patients are more and more angry because our profession is becoming more and more disempowered. It's my belief. We need to take greater control of ourselves, greater control of our professions. We make up over 60% of the healthcare workforce. We need to have a stronger voice. But to get that stronger voice, we need to be a stronger self. You need to be more empowered. And I'm here to give and share with you everything that I've learnt so we can do it together. I can't do this by myself. I just need people like you at home taking greater control of yourself, of your emotions, your knowledge and your education. So guys, we're going to wrap it up for this session, but thank you so much for listening. As I said, you're going to get the PowerPoint of this very, very shortly. If there are any questions, just email me. But just think about this. To me, this is a lot of common sense stuff that's not taught or not spoken about. We can do this together. We can change our profession for the better, but I want you to take greater control of you. So guys, I'm going to sign off now, but thank you so much for listening. Talk to you very, very soon.